What's up, everybody? Your friendly neighborhood Ryan Turford here, and today we got pickups. We're back. We're finally back. I actually decided not to do a pickups video last month just because, honestly, I didn't really pick up anything in the month of August. I was mostly paying off pre-orders and some other things. But for the most part, I've been kind of saving up for a bit and decided to pick up some cool stuff this month. So I wanted to show some of it off. It's not just the stuff that's on the table here. There's more to it. Just like the last time I did pickups, I think back in July, it's going to be a lot of digital options as well. So let's dive into the digital things that I picked up as well. So first off, I picked up Marvel's Avengers, a game that again has been through a whole contentious mess of bugs at launch, whether it's the achievements not unlocking or whatnot. But honestly, I had a really great time with Marvel's Avengers. I actually finished the campaign. I fully leveled up Black Widow and some other characters. And yeah, I had a really good time with it. I've decided, though, that I'm kind of retiring the game, at least temporarily, until the Xbox Series X version comes out later this year. And then that's when I'll jump back into Avengers, because it's a game I actually really liked and had a lot of fun playing. It's almost like just mindless fun sometimes. But at the same time, I don't know. I just had a really good time running through the world as some of the coolest superheroes around. So, and not only that, but I'm really excited about where they're going with the story beyond the campaign, because the campaign itself, I actually really like the story in the campaign, and I think that's probably one of the best parts about that game. So I really want to see what they're going to do next, and I'm excited that Hawkeye's coming, as well as other characters. So I'm excited to see how that's all going to play into the continuing story of Marvel's Avengers going forward. So yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. I'm really excited to play the next gen version. Again, kind of the issue that I had with the game was that performance-wise, it just didn't run well, even on Xbox One X, you know? So I'm just really waiting for those next gen consoles. If there's one game that really wanted to get me excited about next gen, it's Marvel's Avengers, because it's a game that I think is just going to be so much better on next gen consoles, and I'm so ready for that. So that's the first thing I picked up. Next up, on the same day, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I actually did a review of both this and Marvel's Avengers over on the Xbox Drive feed, which you can find in the description of this video, because we're a podcast and we do reviews and stuff like that over there. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, amazing game. Amazing game. I loved Pro Skater 2 when it came out. I played it a lot on PC. I didn't really play Pro Skater 1 when it was out or anything like that. I didn't even have a PlayStation at the time that the first game came out. And then 2, when it came out, I was playing a lot of PC games at the time. So that's where I ended up playing it. And the Tony Hawk series has been a series I've loved for a long time. And Vicarious Visions totally nailed it with this game. They did an amazing job with the remakes of these two games. Basically, they took everything, all the content from 1 and 2, and basically put it into one game. And they did a fantastic job with the visuals and the way it feels. It definitely feels like those old games, even if it's not exactly the same, because they did add some new moves from some of the later Tony Hawk games. For example, the wall plant, which you couldn't do in Tony Hawk 1 and 2, is in this game, for example. And you can turn all that off if you don't want it. If you want to just play with the rules from Tony Hawk 1 or 2, you can definitely do that. It gives you the option to go both ways, which I really appreciated. I thought it was actually a really awesome move. So yeah, Tony Hawk's 1 and 2, fantastic game. I get a full review if you want to hear my full thoughts about it in the podcast, in the description on the Xbox Drive podcast feed. You can learn all about that there, and kind of my full thoughts. I did this whole breakdown on the game, and I thought it was super fun. So I definitely recommend it. Next up, a game that I haven't actually had a chance to check out yet, just because I've been pretty busy this month, is 13 Sentinels Aegis Rim. This is the new game from Vanillaware. It's kind of a visual novel mixed with some action combat, but it's very different from Vanillaware's previous games, because Vanillaware is best known for games like Odin's Sphere, Dragon's Crown, Murmos at the Demon Blade, and a whole bunch of other action-heavy games, very arcadey experiences. So it was very different to see them do kind of a visual novel this time around. But I was super excited to play it. You basically play as 13 different kids, and they're in this world, and there's mechs and stuff. It looks super cool. And I'm just chomping at the bit to play it, but it's just, I hear it's a pretty long game. And I just haven't been able to carve out the time yet to play it. And it's going to be tough to do that, but it's kind of my goal to play it before the end of the year for Game of the Year considerations. But at the same time, with so many games coming out, it's going to be hard to play it at some point. But it's on my PS4 hard drive, so I'm going to play it at some point. It's just I'm kind of waiting for the right time to do that. So I'm super excited to play that game and jump into that one. So let's dive into the list of games that we've got here, because we've got 4 pretty cool games here. I haven't played all of them. In fact, I haven't played the one on top here that we're going to start with. But although I actually got a pretty good haul this month, I think, for physical games, for not even going outside. So first up, I picked up Alpha Protocol. This is an Xbox 360 game. And yes, I know what y'all are thinking, but Ryan, you do the roundabout and you talk about a bajillion Xbox 360 games. How are you still picking up new 360 games? Well, I actually own upwards of like 500 plus 360 games, but I've never picked up a copy of Alpha Protocol. It's not available digitally or anything like that. You have to get a physical copy, but I picked up my physical copy for $3. So this game, for those that are unfamiliar with it, it's a RPG from Obsidian, who are the makers of Knights of the Old Republic 2 or The Outer Worlds. And this game is actually kind of like a blend of Mass Effect and like Mission Impossible or James Bond. Like it's a spy RPG. And I was always super interested in playing it, but it's one of those games that I missed when it came out. And yeah, I found it for a super cheap price, like I said, and I was super excited to pick this up. I'm really excited to play this at some point. I just haven't had time to jump into it because we've been pretty busy over at the Xbox Drive and at my current job. But yeah, Alpha Protocol, I'm so happy to have this in my collection, and I will be playing it at some point and talking about it. Next up, I picked up a Super Nintendo game, one that I've actually wanted for a while, and this one's kind of a bit of an oddity. This is Alien 3 on Super Nintendo, and this is actually from everyone's favorite game company, LJN. You definitely tell the rainbow logo is just the mark of quality right there. But Alien 3 is a really interesting case because there were Alien 3 games on just about every console, but Alien 3 on Super Nintendo is different from all of them. And there were actually wildly different versions. Like the Game Boy version of Alien 3 is very different from the NES version of Alien 3, which is, and that version and the Genesis version are pretty similar to each other. But even then they still have some differences. But this game is actually more of a Metroidvania, or more of a linear-based Metroidvania in a way, where basically you'll go to a stage and then Ripley will go to an overhead map. And in the map, you can basically select a bunch of different missions to go on, and they'll have you do a bunch of different objectives in the environments. And you basically run around this giant open map of the prison from Alien 3, fighting off xenomorphs and facehuggers, which of course, there are tons of aliens in Alien 3, right? Yeah? No. So this game doesn't really follow the movie at all, but at the same time, it was really fun. I actually had a really good time with this game. I haven't finished it yet, but I've been really enjoying my time with this game, which you don't say about LJN games very often. I mean, Maximum Carnage is the other one that you can definitely say is actually a really good LJN published game. So yeah, Alien 3, surprisingly fun, really great on Super Nintendo. If you've never played it and you like Metroidvanias, honestly, I recommend giving it a try. It's actually pretty fun. So next up, everyone knows I like horror movies, or at least if you know me, you know I like horror movies. And Abadox, The Deadly Inner War, is a game that I kind of was scared of as a kid. Looking at this weird box art, it's basically a body horror game essentially, which is not something you would see too often on the NES. I mean, horror games as it is were very slim. Other than games like Friday the 13th or Nightmare on Elm Street, it wasn't very often that you'd get horror games. But Abadox, the Deadly Inner War, really fun game. Surprised it's Milton Bradley of all companies, but it's basically a side-scrolling shooter where you're basically fighting through space, but then there's like these body parts everywhere and stuff like that. It's like, again, it's very like body horror-ish, and it's really cool. A really fun space shooter, which is a genre that I don't always get into, but I had a lot of fun playing this game, and it's pretty hard, but at the same time, the difficulty I feel is pretty fair. So yeah, Abadox, really fun game. Highly recommended if you like space shooters on the NES. And one that I just overlooked, I saw advertisements all over Nintendo Power growing up, or GamePro, because those were the two magazines I read as a kid. And I just never thought to pick it up because I wasn't really too much into horror stuff as a kid. I mostly got into horror as a genre as an adult. or just as a teenager for the most part. I was watching a bunch of cheesy horror movies as a teenager, and then I've got much more into it as an adult. So this is the type of thing that young Ryan wouldn't have liked, but older Ryan definitely digs. So last thing, this is actually kind of like something I've wanted forever. I mean, ever since I got my original PlayStation, the very first game I got with my PlayStation was Lunar the Silver Star Saga, which is a remake of a Sega CD game, Lunar the Silver Star, that I really love. It's one of the RPGs that really got me into RPGs, and one of the reasons why RPGs were one of my favorite genres today. And Lunar 2 came out, and I never got a chance to pick it up on Sega CD when it came out. It wasn't until much later that I was able to get a copy of it. But I've never played the PlayStation remake of Lunar 2 Eternal Blue. So this is Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete. This is essentially the remake on PlayStation 1 of that game. It also came out on Sega Saturn in Japan only, but it is here in North America on the PlayStation 1. This copy's a little bit beat up, but it's hard to keep. I'm just amazed that there are still box copies of this game that are actually like in good shape, because for the most part, you usually see these in like really frayed shape, because it's hard to keep these cardboard boxes in shape. It comes with a full soundtrack. It comes with a making of DVD. It comes with a cloth map and a bunch of other goodies inside this cool collector's edition box. You can't buy it without the collector's edition unless you just buy it from someone disc only. It was only available in this package. But yeah, I got ahead and played it. Awesome game. I love the remade visuals, the music, everything itself is super cool. I love too that they have full motion cutscenes, because they had cutscenes in the original game that were anime-esque, and that was kind of my gateway into anime with the original Lunar the Silver Star. But they were like almost like stills that had like either the eyes would move, or like you'd have very limited animation. With this, you got full anime cutscenes, which is really cool. Again, it's totally up my alley, being a big anime fan. So yeah, I'm so happy to finally have this in my collection. The reason I really waited to pull the trigger on something like this was just because it was never at a price that I would want to pick it up for. Like normally I would always see this for like $200-$300 either on eBay or in stores, but luckily I found a deal in my area that was actually a very reasonable price. So I decided to finally pull the trigger on Lunar 2 Eternal Blue Complete, and I'm so happy to finally have it in my collection and finally have a chance to play it, because it's been a hole in my PlayStation library that I've wanted to fill forever, and I'm finally excited to say that I have it in my collection. So that's it. Those are all the games I picked up in September of 2020. What do you think about my pickups this month? What do you think about some of the games I talked about? And leave your comments below, and I will definitely respond to some of them. Also, what games did you pick up this month? Because I know that there were a lot of games coming out in September, a lot of sports games, a lot of big games, and I'd love to hear what you have to say, so leave your comments below. As for me, you can find me on Twitter anytime at Ryan Turford. That's TURFORD, because everybody always asks. You also find my podcast, The Xbox Drive, down in the description of this video. We're on all the podcast services, so feel free to jump on in and listen to our amazing podcast about Xbox if you are into Xbox, especially because we've got this Series X launch coming up, so we've got lots to talk about there. Also, look out for a review of a Nintendo Switch game tomorrow on this channel that I can't talk too much about, but it's a review that I think y'all should definitely check out. So I will leave it with that. Thank you so much for checking out my pickups video for September 2020, and I'll see y'all next month, because there's lots of games coming out in October and I'll have lots to say. Until then, see you, everybody.